happy holidays. I'm Mr. Jack. I'm going on a journey. I'd love for you to join me. But my big question today is, who were the Pilgrims? Why did they do what they did? Were they just ordinary people? I'm going to say they were extraordinary people, or an extraordinary faith possessed them to do something extraordinary. I need another word other than extraordinary. But anyhow, special, super, fantastic. What they did was beyond anything I've ever done in my life. I'm going to try to enter into this story now. The thing that prompted them to leave might have been something like this. One day while working, one of their joyful band saw something out of the corner of his eye. He paid little attention to it. He continued to, let's say he was a shoe cobbler. From time to time, he became aware that something was going on. He saw some men talking and they were packing crates, and then something seemed to whisper to him. About that time, a customer walked into the shop, ordered some shoes, sat for a fitting, and paid for the service. The cobbler heard, or maybe he felt, that whisper again. Several times in the next hour, he's aware of the words, "Go west." He glanced to his right and saw the men talking, and he saw the crates, and that's odd, he thought. I'm the only one in the shop, yet I'm aware of these men. He turned back to the shoe he was working on. Go west. The cobbler stopped dead in his tracks. What? Go west. He jerked his head to the right and stared at the men who were talking and packing crates. The cobbler's senses were heightened as he was able to confirm that he was indeed alone, yet he was watching these men, and then he heard it again. Go west. Having spent hours in communion with Christ, his Savior, and knowing that some of the scriptures, he realized that something was happening, something that had happened a few times before, something that he'd read about in the Holy Bible. Though he was still not quite sure what to do, he put the shoe down. He took a slow, steady breath, and he turned his attention to the men. Perhaps one of them had spoken those words. But he didn't think so. What he had heard wasn't really like the voice of a man. It was more like a gentle wind from somewhere deep inside. He hadn't lost his senses. He could smell the leather that he worked on, and he heard the people in the street as they passed by. He picked up the shoe. He could feel the weight of it. So no, he had not taken leave of his senses. Yet he could plainly see these men who were just a few feet away. He watched them pick up some household items and put them in a crate. He knew they were preparing for a journey, but it must be a long journey. Although he was in the cobbler shop, he began to understand that these men were somewhere else. He saw canvas billowing in the wind. He heard the sound that canvas makes when being whipped by a strong wind. He smelled fish. He smelled the salty air. He saw ships. He heard waves slapping against wood. The men he saw were on a loading dock on a wharf. They moved the loaded crates onto a waiting ship. And then he heard it again. Go west. The cobbler sat down on a stool and watched the scene before him. He wasn't with the men. He wasn't part of their scene, but he watched it. Taking deep, measured breaths, he was relaxed and very curious, was totally at peace. He stood up, picked up the shoe, and started to work, and the other men continued to pack and move more crates. As the afternoon progressed, other customers came to the store. He interacted with them, and sometimes he wasn't sure when. He just realized that he could no longer see those men on the wharf, and he could not hear the waves against the wooden ships. He had a lot to do, and he continued to think about those men. He also decided that if the voice spoke to him again, he would answer it. He thought about the little boy in the Bible, Samuel. The young lad had heard the Lord's voice, but thought that a man had spoken to him, and it was the priest Eli, I believe, who told him that the voice could be God. It could be the Lord's voice. And the cobbler thought, well, if that could happen to Samuel, I suppose it could happen to me. The shop door opened and a familiar face peeped around the corner. Papa, said the lad, Mummy wants to know when you're coming home. Tell her that I'm locking up now. The lad left. The cobbler took off his apron and he hung it on a well-worn wooden peg. When he did so, he glanced down at his own shoes and chuckled. The shop walls were lined with shelves containing row upon row of beautiful shoes and boots. But he just shook his head back and forth. One day when I get time, I'm going to fix me own boots. Then he heard the voice again. Go west. For a split second, he paused. He had just sent word to his wife that he was on his way home. He walked toward the door, but instead of walking out, he put his hand on that rusty latch and he locked it. In the lonely silence, he said, Lord, are you speaking to me? He turned around, walked back to his stool, and dragged it back to a dark corner. He sat down. Lord, was that you? If it's you, I'm ready to listen. Well, he knew that it was the Lord. He longed for an answer, but really didn't need one. He was a man of faith, a student of the Holy Scriptures. For a few minutes, he sat in the dark, enjoying the light in his soul. Peace flooded his spirit, and his mind was very clear. Well, he said in a loud voice to only himself, this isn't the time to be sitting. This isn't the time to continue praying about it. I have crates to pack. He stood up, walked to the door. This time he unlatched it, stepped into the twilight, and walked briskly home. It was almost dark when he got there. A little candlelight glowed through the window. He opened the cottage door and said, Wife, we have some packing to do. We're going to America.